Support Rainbow Soul. Check out the Rainbow Soul merchandise for your favorite new shirt. A variety of colors and styles to suit your taste. Show off your love for Rainbow Soul. Get cool designs with your favorite quotes. Designs come in a variety of colors so that you can express your most authentic self. Support Rainbow Soul in spreading the word that queer, gender variant, intersex, transgender is sacred. Rainbow Soul, putting the soul back into queer. Order your unique Rainbow Soul merchandise at rainbowsoul.show.
Welcome to Rainbow Soul, a live show and podcast in search of deep answers and medicine about consciousness, spirituality, witchcraft, natural magic, and queer, inclusive spiritual paths of many varieties. We will explore the use of herbs, candles, colors, and nature in our personal lives, as well as queer-inspired rituals designed with transgender and non-binary people in mind. We are welcoming all pagans, indigenous two-spirits, witchy folks, conscious seekers, and people off the beaten path who want to explore the human spiritual experience that we are all capable of having. With the deep reverence and anti-racist values, inclusivity, and a healthy and honest respect for our ancestors, Rainbow Soul brings diverse guests and topics all related to queer spiritual experience. Tap into this amazing resource live and find a supportive, safe environment while exploring interesting topics and diverse guests. Listen on your favorite podcast platform and catch the show at your convenience and still participate in the contest and games. Get more information about games and contests at our website, rainbowsoul.show. rainbowsoul.show. Thank you for tuning in to Rainbow Soul.
Hi.
Hey.
Welcome everyone to Rainbow Soul. I'm Hollis. I'm one of your hosts of the show, and I'm a psychic, I'm a witch, I'm an astrologer, I'm a medium. Yeah, I'm all kinds of things. Buddhist. You can check out my website at divineandrogen.com. I have lots of different offerings from coaching to readings and a book. And this is my partner and my host, Bright Hawk. Welcome, Bright Hawk.
Hi there. Welcome. It's good to be back on Rainbow Soul. Hope everybody's doing really good. We send you big love. I'm Bright Hawk. I'm a storyteller. I'm a musician. I'm a handpan player. And I am the author of a wonderful book called The Dancing Hippo. That is a gender neutral book. Isn't that great? It has no pronouns. I'm very proud of it. It's got a great message. It's a story about resilience. And I think that's something we all need to get good at in these days is resilience. So yeah, I'm a storyteller, a musician. My website is brighthawkproductions.com. It is a pleasure to be here again and to talk about one of our very favorite subjects.
Yes, astrology. But before we get started, let's do a little meditation, everyone. Let's just take a minute.
Sounds good to me.
Just allow yourself to get lost in the rhythm. Allow your breath to calm to comfortable, calm breath. If you have to take in a real deep breath and then blow it out, blow it out, blow it out, blow it out, blow it out. blow it out, blow it out, blow it out until you can't blow out anymore. Just take a moment to close your eyes and see the night sky in your eyes. When was the last time you looked up at the night sky and seen the moon and felt the stars? And how looking at the universe can sometimes make us feel sort of small. But in this big universe, each and every one of us has a unique reflection of the stars. We are a reflection of the stars. And each one of us is perfectly imperfect, just the way we were imagined by the universe. So imagine a constellation if you can, or a planet, maybe just the moon. And remember that we are them and they are us. That we are from the stars. So that means each and every one of you is meant to be here because you were put here by the stars. So open your eyes, twinkle your toes. Somehow everybody knows what that means. Twinkle your fingers. And I hope you brought your astrology chart, because tonight we're going to do an astrology update.
Yay! Because there is so much wisdom in the stars. And boy, if you haven't figured out just a little bit of this part of yourself, you are in for a treat. And if you have started to inquire a bit more about what is this stuff, astrology, and what do the stars have in store for me, and what does it all mean? Wow. It's an endless learning experience about how each of us does our thing. And no two star charts are the same. I have a friend, an old friend, a dear friend. We found out that our birthdays were the same day and the same year. But of course, he was born at a different time, and he was born on the East Coast, and I, of course, was born on the West Coast, and we had totally different charts. Shall we get started?
Let's get started.
Yeah.
Well, I am excited because there's lots of great stuff happening in the stars. In case you didn't know, there's lots of stuff happening all the time, and we don't always realize how it's affecting our lives, like how the moon. So that's like the first one that I tell people to start paying attention to. Have you noticed when the moon is, when it's full, how that affects your life, and what sign it's in, or when it's new, does it affect you? And how does it affect you? And probably all of us are different, I think.
For sure. And I think the moon is an obvious one because it affects the tides, and we are made of water. And so it affects us, the pressures that we feel in life. Sometimes if we start to realize and look up, there's a reason why you're feeling a certain kind of pressure. And I think the reason why astrology, learning more about it, can be so helpful is it's like knowing the weather. And whether it's going to be a sunny day or a rainy day, you prepare differently, right? So that's what we're here to sort of explore with you, is sort of the big themes of the week and the month, and how each of us is in this boat together, if you
Mhm.
will, and how to navigate the tides, and make the most of the journey.
Yeah, and I think the moon in Aquarius, like we're gonna have a full moon in like 3 days. So
And the last three
yeah,
moons, they're really big moons. They're called super moons because they're the closest to the earth. They look even bigger. And so they exhibit more pressure and more intensity, more emotion, more your ocean of emotion, right? All of that feeling of the flow. It, why do I feel so emotional today? You can hear yourself saying those things, right? And there's a lot that can explain that when you look at the moon.
yeah, and I think also like you can know that the feeling that you're having may just be temporary,
Exactly.
may just be because of the square or whatever. So don't make any harsh or rash decisions that you might regret afterwards. Sort of like Mercury retrograde. But if you know when these times are happening and how they might affect you and what to kind of look out for, that can be really helpful. So we wanted to talk about what's going to be happening in July. And so the first thing that comes to mind from this date forward, and today's 10th, July 10th. And and at least I knew it was after the 4th of July. And so and so first things first is that the full moon is going to happen in just a couple of days. And so we're starting to come into that energy right now, okay? So the moon is going to be in Aquarius. Um and the thing about that moon in Aquarius is right away. So the moon is very sort of, it rules intuition, emotions, motherhood, cycles. Okay, that's the moon. Just think about what the moon does. The moon cycles, right? It definitely has the cycles with tide, right? And the moon definitely, I mean, when you think about anybody with intuition, you think about the moon for some reason, like maybe because it resembles a crystal ball, but the moon, has means intuition in most traditions, or has some relation to intuition. And motherhood, because of the cycles that come with being a mother and with your monthly cycle. If a person has a monthly cycle, then they are in cycles with the moon often. Okay.
And right now we're in the time of Cancer, and Cancer is the ruler of Cancer is the moon. And so, I always think of the time of Cancer as crabs, is the symbol of the moon, and I that makes me think of the beach, and the beach, the summertime. There we are.
Oh, okay. Well, what a good way to think about it.
That's my brain just
Well done.
does that quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and directly across the chart is the moon. The moon is actually in opposition, I'm pretty sure, to the moon. And I mean, the moon is in opposite, or almost in opposition, not quite. So that's actually
Today,
Uranus
or
on the
when
on
the
the
full
full
moon.
moon
Okay,
day.
yeah.
So it's just slightly off, but it's on the other side of the chart. So intuition and stuff like that could come, but you may not share it outwards, especially with the sun in Cancer. Because Cancer tends to keep all of the sensitive bits under the hard shell. Okay. So that's kind of, we all have a habit of so by the way, everybody has Cancer in them. Everybody has Scorpio in them, Virgo in them, Leo in them. All the zodiac signs are in your astrology chart. Sometimes you have planets in them and they affect you differently, yes, but all of us have all zodiac signs. And all zodiac signs tend to have some shadow and some light, okay? So there's no bad sign or good signs. Let's just not do that, okay? Um, um, Eve said, "Oh my God." Eve said, "I thought you were gonna say it's hot and people get crabby." Oh my gosh, Eve. Oh my gosh. That's really good.
That could be one's experience as well, for
That's
sure.
that's really good. Yeah. So the moon's in Aquarius right now. So Aquarius is very much about the collective and inclusiveness. It's also about doing stuff out of the box. It's also about doing things differently. And so immediately I start to think about in groups of people that are doing, if you're doing anything intuitively with groups or other people, be paying attention because the moon is in the third house. So that would indicate community, siblings, cousins, people like sir to your side, if you
And
will.
we're talking a few days from now when it's a full moon.
Hmm.
Because right now, if you looked at tonight's chart, the moon is in Sagittarius. Just and it moves really quickly. So if you want to learn about astrology, learning to follow the moon cycles will teach you a lot pretty
Hmm.
quickly.
Hmm. So the moon is in Aquarius, and it's in the third house. So I'm going to have to say that we're going to be paying a lot of attention to the collective, at least inside, because this is below the horizon. So this is
Mm.
going to be internally down here,
Hmm.
because what's actually going on in the world is mostly happening across the chart from it in the eighth house,
And
which is a lot of other stuff that doesn't have a whole lot to do with the moon.
when we talk about the eighth house, the thing about astrology is that it is as much art as it is science. And that's the beauty of it. You can spend a lifetime learning about it and another lifetime and another lifetime because there is just so many ways that it's been expressed over time. So, definitely, we should say at the beginning of this that whatever we say that works for you and resonates for you, wahoo, and use it. And if it doesn't, let it go. As Hollis always says in their tarot readings. My fascination fell in love with moment about astrology was the first time I had my chart read and suddenly realized that there were parts of my personality that were innate in me that like learn how to harvest these gifts, and I was trying to figure out how to rub them out. And so it was like literally like stop trying to rub that freckle out. That spot is you.
Mm-hmm.
Learn to love it. And so to me, that's the gift. That's where you want to spend the time is what are the gifts that are naturally available to me because the universe is saying, here, blessings, 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 and where do I need to look out for, ooh, there's a growth opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so I think that's a really important piece of the discovery and why I think it's such a valuable, valuable thing. And so at different times, different things will pop out of the chart. So, when you first get going, learning all of the stars, learning, what is the sun about? What is the moon about? What is the ascendant, the rising sign about? And then you start to learn things about Saturn and why, what is your Saturn return? Why is that so important? We could talk about that. Mercury retrograde, you hear that in the common vernacular. So most people have some clue that, oh yeah, Mercury has something to do with communication. Oh yeah, and Venus has something to do with love. And oh yeah, Mars is the god of war. I mean, this isn't that hard to figure out. And then when we start to figure out all the planets and we um, get a clear understanding of what your sign is, the ruling planet of that sign, then we start to talk about houses. And the houses each are a nugget of
Mm-hmm.
information. It's like it's appropriate that it's called a house because you can think of the whole thing as a big mansion and each one has different things to teach you. And so the eighth house, we talk about the eighth house, often gets referred to as the house of shadow, the house of other people's money, sex, death, taxes. Um, it's when you want to know how somebody fights, how when you get twisted up, where do you get caught up and how are you likely to come out expressing yourself. And so seeing what the house is related to that, what the sign is and what the house is, and then who are the tenants? Is it somebody big? Like, for example, I'll tell you my chart. My eighth house, I have Jupiter, and it's in retrograde. And now Jupiter's a big planet, and it's my ruling planet because I'm a Sagittarius. And so Sagittarius are known to be fun-loving and gregarious, and we love a good time. We love to bring the good time too. And Jupiter sort of is known for bringing good fortune and bringing sweetness and expansion. So what does it mean when it's in retrograde? And all of us, when you look at your chart and you pull your chart, all of us have different things going on. You're always going to see the nodes in retrograde, for example, and that's a whole other conversation. Retrograde, when you go backwards, you're going back over the same ground, right? The planet has gone from moving forward to moving backwards. So it tends to be reflective. So the energy, instead of going this way, is coming this way. So why do I mention this? Well, right now, the what we call the personal planets, the inner planets, Mercury, Venus, the moon, Mars, they right now are all direct. And coming up right now, the outer planets, we have Saturn retrograde, Neptune retrograde, Pluto retrograde, and Jupiter at the end of the month, I think it's on the 28th of July, is going to go retrograde. So for someone like me, that comes back to the place that the energy that I was born with, meaning I'm comfortable with. It's a great chance to review your lesson plan, so to speak, to look at what's going on and see how it's going. Retrogrades can be just as powerful if you know how to use them and you know where your planets are in relationship to them. And if you don't, it can be like trying to swim up a waterfall. Not only is it darn near impossible, even if you make progress, it's dangerous and you're in high probability you're going to fall. So,
but all of us have like a different experience of like things in retrograde because it will depend on how it is in your chart and what it's aspecting at the moment. So, you have to really like get to know astrology, and the best place to start is your own chart. And
absolutely,
the thing is that if you do have something retrograde, if you notice the little R next to the planet, so I don't know, everybody's using different programs these days, but we use astro-chart.com is good, and also astro.com, which is very popular. And when you get your chart, you might have to look at it really close to see a retrograde. I'm going to show you.
There's a tiny little R next to the
See that
symbol.
tiny little R? That means that she was born with Jupiter retrograde. So that's Bright Hawk's chart. Jupiter was retrograde when she was born. So then as a result, they will also, any challenges that come with the retrograde, they will overcome it by the time they get to a certain age. I don't want to say old age. It's more like in your by the time you've done your Saturn returns or somewhere around there, you'll probably start to master your retrogrades. So you'll become a master of your retrogrades, whatever they are. As
time goes on, right? There's a lot to understand in astrology. This is the part where it can start to sound like gobbledygook, but this is where a lot of the potent information is. Understanding transits and aspects, how things are pushing on each other. And so when we talk in astrology, that there's some basic language that we talk about, and there's things called conjunctions, where it sounds just like what it is. Two energies next to each other combining, conjunct, and it's usually 5-degree orb is typical, no problem calling it a conjunction. When it starts to be between 5 and 10, it's a loose conjunction. Then there's obvious things, oppositions, opposite, right? And then there's things called trines. They look like little triangles. And trines are considered the most blessed aspect in astrology. They're blessings. But what happens when you have too many blessings? You take things for granted. You may not realize it. You,
I always say it's kind of like a spoiled brat because they didn't have any challenges, and people do like that in the world do exist.
absolutely.
And they have tons and tons and tons of trines and almost no squares, and then as a result, they don't. I don't
So
know.
squares are an aspect that say if you do your work, there are rewards, but it requires you to do the work. Otherwise, you're stuck in a little box. But if you bust out of your box, if you do the work, there are rewards. And lots of us know that experience of like, oh, I didn't want to do it, but I did the work, and then I failed 14 times, but I succeeded, and then it was better than ever. That kind of storyline. And then there's other fanciful things that we're not going to get too deeply into, but the words like sextiles are considered blessings. And so when we start to look at these things, they tell us about flavors and spices and hurricanes and different ways that the world is coming at us and how you might want to ride certain things. And so we've heard about things like Mercury retrograde. We've heard about things like Saturn returns, but having a Saturn opposition or a square to Saturn can be even more challenging for some people than the return itself. There's lots of things to understand when you look at a chart. And that's why people like Hollis here is really, really good and you can go to their website to book them, to get a reading, to have someone explain it to you. I have to say, that was part of how Hollis and I got together. Hollis knew my birthday was coming up and was practicing doing charts and offered me a chart. And I was like, well,
I was very interested in trying to like see what a package could look like that I could, possibly do because I knew I was going to be a professional astrologer. But the interesting part was that I found out that we were twin flames, and I was like, "What? Oh my gosh!"
And I knew if Hollis did my chart, they were totally going to have the goods on me. I was like, well, let's see. And I thought about it, and then I was like, this is a gift. Thank you. I would love to have my chart read by you. And here we are.
Here we are. So I just want to give you a little tips on getting your aspects. Like, what are the aspects? I'll tell you what, the easiest place to get just a list of aspects in your chart is astro-charts.com. Astro-charts.com. So if you go there, they'll give you a list like this. Okay? But if you're already using astro.com, I want to let you know that the symbols, that's what this little legend over here is. That's what this is in your chart. Okay, those are the two most popular places that I know to print out your birth chart for free. And that little chart just tells you, it has little symbols in it. Most of them will be obvious. The square is a square. The trine is a triangle. Okay. But some of them you may not know what they are. So you can just look up for a little cheat sheet on the symbols and what they mean. And let me just say that will help you understand how the planets are affected. So if you're looking at your chart, I just want to help you out. So the other thing I want to point out that I think our astrologer Ann Ortley has been talking about is that there's a party going on in Cancer, okay, in the 8th house. I think she said, "Don't piss off any women."
Yeah.
End quote.
And
I
literally predicted the Roe v. Wade decision announcement and the alignment in the stars. And Lilith is active right now. Lilith is very Don't you mess with me.
So Lilith is in Cancer in the 8th house, and
Sorry,
she's
and
right.
we should explain.
Yeah.
Lilith is an asteroid
Mhm.
named after, and in the mythology, Lilith is the one who rejected Adam. Said, God, no way, man. I don't want to be with this guy. And Lilith is known as a badass, known as an independent thinker. And so
A strong feminist.
Strong
She's also very
feminist.
sexual.
Sure.
She's sort of, if we think of the idyllic woman, or like, which would be kind of represented in Virgo, she's the opposite. She's sort of like, some people like to call her a demon, but I would just say that she's a very strong feminist.
Okay, we'll leave it there.
Mm-hmm.
And so, party in the 8th house, the house of shadow and death and other people's money, and we have Sirius, which is motherhood, the satellite, the asteroid of motherhood, Lilith, the sun, and
Mercury.
So
that, and it's all in Cancer, and it's above the horizon, so it's in the public eye. So talking about men that have not been respectful to women will probably be on the top of the to-do list. So don't be surprised if you meet with some of your stronger females, that probably stronger women. I don't want to just say females, because it could be including trans women, any kind of women, person that's, or even a masculine person that's presenting their feminist at the moment. Okay. So you want to think about it less about gender and think more about the action and the energy. Okay. And so with all of those energies together, along with Venus right next to it, sort of pushing her way in, it's starting to create this energy where we're seeing women come to power. We're seeing feminism really step up, right? Really start to be like, you're not going to do this. Now, I know that recently the insanity with the abortion thing is totally ridiculous, okay? And so I think that has a bigger, there's more to the story, I think, is what Anne said. Anne Ortley, she explained that there's more to the story, and there definitely is. In astrology, there's sometimes chapters of things. Like right now, we're in between 2 eclipses, so we're in a rest period between the eclipses. But you should be aware of that energy because yeah, that's what's happening in politics. But what about your life, right? What about you? And so I'm going to say, don't be surprised if a strong woman or a woman suddenly finds her power, and starts to speak of sort of feminist needs, or things that she needs you to do, like you need to do this, you need to do that, or also uh owning their sexuality suddenly, or doing things that show their power. So I think that's like the big thing happening in the stars right now. And a lot of this right now is, I know it's part of this yod, and so there's several yods in the sky, but what I want to point out is the one with Venus, the ascendant in Scorpio, and Pluto in Capricorn, because Pluto is part of the United States Pluto returns. Okay, so the United States is going through a rebirth, in case you haven't noticed. And the ascendant is in Scorpio, so that's about transformation and change. So we already have Pluto in Capricorn, which is very much about systems changing, rebirth to systems, rebirth to the way we do things, okay? Because that's Capricorn. It's very structural. And then the ascendant in Scorpio is all about transformation, and the Venus in Gemini is can have 2 sides to it, okay? And it will also think higher, think of new ways to do things, try to intellectualize things. And that the three of them related is a yod. And so a yod is destiny. It's also known as the finger of God, meaning this is happening.
Yeah.
Nothing anyone can do to prevent it.
And it's really interesting to look at your chart and see if you have one of these. I happen to have two. And where they and so it looks like what kind of triangle is it when it's not an isosceles?
Well, if you use astro-charts.com, it will literally tell you yod, and it will tell you what signs and degrees and everything.
So if you're wondering what your destiny, what your purpose in life, your mission is meant to be, if you're struggling in any way, shape, or form with that, look at your chart and look for these things. They literally point the way, point to where you are meant to go and deal with it. And there's and it's like the die's been cast. There's no changing that. There are a lot of things that are changeable and mutable, if you will. And that's another those are some very interesting words. When you start to understand what sign you are, then there's words that go with that sign: fixed, mutable, cardinal. So cardinal is the elements all relate in astrology, right? Water, air, earth, fire. And each of them have three signs related to it. Each of them has a cardinal aspect. Each of them has a fixed aspect. Guess who has a hard time changing? The fixed ones, right? Taurus, super obvious, super easy to go there, right? Guess who's very, very, very mutable? Sagittarius. We could change our minds just like that. And so it sort of tells you the progression and what to expect and how you work your process. And I'm going to be ahead of the curve on this. I'm going to need to be patient because the rest of the group is not going to get there as fast as me. So we sometimes call those fast processors versus slow processors. And it's in their astrology, don't rush a Taurus, right? So, but the thing about Taurus is once they've made up their mind, boom, they get it done. They get it done. And they know what they want and how they're going to get there. And it's boom, boom, boom. And it's impressive. But it takes them a bit of time to get there. So what your pieces are, how they relate, how they all speak to each other, it has a tremendous amount to do with how you do you. And then we start to talk about things like degrees. So there's a wonderful method Anne Ortley teaches called the pinball method. And it's literally looking at, what do I have at 0 degrees? What do I have at 1 degree? What do I have at 2 degrees? What do I have at 3 degrees? And you'll follow it like a pinball around the chart about what you go to first and where you go next, so to speak. Okay. So that's a really fascinating thing because, again, it reveals to you your strategy, which you may not even realize you're doing. And this is really helpful when you're in conflict resolution and you're in relationship with somebody you're having a tussle with and you can't understand why is this so complicated. And then you start to unravel things and you're like, whoa, astrology teaches us a heck of a lot about how we do our thing.
So Eve is saying that Taurus is their ascendant. And this is what I want to say about your ascendant.
Okay, yeah. This is
so
important.
First of all, your sun sign is what you will always try to be. So did you ever read the sun sign stuff and go, well, sometimes I'm that way?
Meaning the daily horoscopes in the newspapers.
Right? Or whatever, yeah. Right? And you kind of feel that way and you're like, I don't know, sometimes. That's because that's where your sun is. And the sun does what? It lights the way. Okay. So it's showing you to head in that direction in a way. Okay. It's, you constantly strive to be your sun sign, but who you really are is your ascendant. And your ascendant is how you do things. It's you uh how you go about things on a day-to-day basis, how you choose to do things or not. And some of those, and so you really need to look at your ascendant because it will matter. And when you listen to horoscopes or the weather, make sure you're listening to your sun, yes, but listen and read your ascendant and your moon sign. Find out where your moon is. Easy to find the moon symbol on most astrology charts.
No problem,
It's
right?
usually really easy. And you find the moon and you find out what zodiac sign it's in. You can find the symbols, and easily, next thing you know, you will have very big part of who you are. So your sun, your ascendant, and your moon are really the three most important. As a Taurus ascendant, Eve, that means that you're going to take a longer time to make a decision about something, but if you decide to do it, you're going to do it, especially with a moon in Leo. Okay, Eve?
I have a moon in Leo, and my moon in Leo is 0. So I pay attention to that 0 moon is where I begin, Leo. So I have to be careful. One part of me, I'm very comfortable with the Leo, and it's aspirational and emotional. Like moon is more internal, right? How you feel about things. So in my younger years, I'm going to call it that. I'm hoping I'm not like that as much anymore. Is Leo, what's the shadow side of Leo? An arrogant lion, right? That's going to bite your head off, right? So I don't want to be that, right? So I have had to learn how to harness the Leo and be a good leader, be the noble leader that Leo calls you to be. But my Leo is a 0. That means I am 0. I am a baby. I am as new to the sign as you can be. So I'm fresh-eyed, I'm naive, I'm 0. So these, you start to pay attention as you go through, because my sun on the other side is at 29 degrees. So my sun and my moon talk to each other because they're 2 degrees apart, right? The signs are 30 degrees, right? It makes sense. 12, 30, 360, yo. And so my sun is at 29. That means that my sun is as old as Sagittarius can be before you are stepping into Capricorn. And truthfully, I sometimes call myself a Sagicorn because at 29, if your sign is at 28 degrees to 30, you're considered a cusp. And you should look up your cusp because every cusp has a definition. Every cusp has, and your purpose in life is. And so there's lots of us who are cuspy babies. And again, if you're wondering, what is my purpose in life? What is the universe asking? I'm so lost. There's so much here for you, and you won't be lost for long.
I want to answer
promise.
Jill's question. Jill said, is it true that having your sun in 0 degrees means that this is the beginning of a new karmic cycle? Well, Jill, I want to say, yes, I believe that. I believe that, yes, you could be starting, you could be starting a new karmic cycle. Yes. I want to say that this is like what we were talking about, astrology being, it's a little, it is a science, okay?
Yeah.
It is a science. There is some science to it. There's definitely some mathematics and stuff like that. But when you start to interpret the zodiac signs, the planets, and even the aspects, there is some intuition that has to be applied.
Sure.
And belief system. So just like anything else, Jill, the expression can be seen through different eyes, if you will. Just like in mediumship, it depends on the person doing the interpretation. It will always come through it will always be filtered through their eyes. And the same thing goes with tarot. If you get a tarot reading, it will always be filtered through through your reader's eyes. And the same thing goes with astrology. Okay? It will always be, and some of us, interestingly, the interesting thing about the astrology community is that we tend to get pulled to different like interests. Like for me, I'm very pulled and interested in cusps and asteroids and aspects like the yod and other rare aspects like that. So I just think that, and all of us are called to doing different things. And I tend to study your eighth house with you if you do a reading with me. And you're not asking any specific questions. That's where I tend to go. Is I tend to go to your shadow, and I tend to go, okay, here's your shadow work. Because that's just who I am. I'm a Scorpio rising. So if you're a Scorpio rising, you can know it is not you. You get to the root of things. It's who you are. It's it's the way you do things. Just like a Taurus may take a little longer to do it, but will have a very luxurious ride when they do. Okay. So like they will find the best, most luxurious ride they can find. So I'm just going to say that everyone has different ways of doing things. And this is why we're all unique beings. So I just think that that's really important, to remember that.
Absolutely. And I think the fun part about looking at things like yods and destiny lines is the insight it gives you, especially if there's something that has felt like a struggle, like, why am I so hung up on XYZ? And every time we've had anything go on that's what's going on, we take a look at the astrology, and it's almost always there to help us understand. Oh, and that I love that. I love that. I love that light bulb moment.
Hmm. So the next thing I just want to say is, first of all, we're halfway through. Do
Wow.
you want to share that story today?
I could. I
Okay.
could. So, I'm a storyteller, and stories come from many times, many places. Today's story comes to us from nature. I was doing my work, getting the house ready for we run an Airbnb and we have guests arriving. So many things were getting done and taken care of. And I was taking care of firewood and getting the fireplace set up. And then I was going to hang the screen. We have a little magic mesh screen. So you can go in and out of the doors without any problem. And of course, we take them down in the winter and put them back up in the summer. And now is about the time to put them back up, evenings with mosquitoes. And yeah, this is the time we managed to find the screen. Yay. So I got my tools and I got ready and I stood on my stool, and it wasn't rickety. And I was like, okay. And I've got my staple gun and I'm just about ready. And I look at the top of the door ledge and I see something move. And I'm like, what the? And I look and I'm like, what am I looking at? And my mind starts filling in with things that are not, I don't know. I don't know what I'm looking at. It's a little hole. It's a little hole. So I take my screwdriver and I gently touch it. And because I thought maybe I was looking at the back of a mouse, but that didn't make any sense to me. They don't hang out like that. So I just ever so slightly touch it, and its little head pokes up, and it's a bat, and its little teeth, it's tiny. I mean, it's probably the size of my thumb. And it's pushed into this little tiny hole above the door ledge it's pushed itself into the cement. So I'm like, whoa, okay. Peace out. I'm getting down off my stool. I don't want to fall or scream. I start yelling to Hollis, though, like, we have a situation. And so I finished all the other jobs, and I got back up on the stool one more time and I thought about putting up the screen and it was like, nah, just leave this guy alone. Let's hope that sometime this evening, everybody goes out. Maybe the bat goes out. I'll get my spackle and my cement, fill it in because it's right above the door. Truth is, I took a moment. I was like, well, God, this is one of those moments where nature, a bat is a huge gift. They eat tons of bugs and mosquitoes, and they really create balance in the universe, in nature. And so I looked up bat medicine and I looked up the different they unfortunately, as an animal, they get a bad rap for a lot of shit. They really get a bad rap. I really think of them as blessings. The very, very first time I did a meditation where our intention was to connect with an animal totem, the very first experience I ever had meditating to, connect with your animal totem, and I connected with the bat. It blew my mind. I'm like, what? No, I didn't necessarily want to sit with the bat in the moment, but then I got it. I got how, the bat hangs upside down. That's how we come into the world. Rebirth is an obvious thing there. But then I looked up all sorts of other wonderful things. Balance. The bat is about balance. It's about maneuverability. And I was like, yeah, he maneuvered himself into a tiny little hole. It's about flexibility. And so in the Navajo tradition, they look at the bat as evidence of things are going to get better, that it's a good omen, that it's when you're in a vision quest, if you had bat come to you, it was things are working out, things are unfolding. It's a good luck omen. And then I came across a really sweet Ojibwe story. And so this story goes like this. This story says that, once upon a time, a long time ago, when the universe was beginning and the sun was just beginning to rise early in the day, early morning, and the sun is climbing in the sky. And oh my God, the sun got tangled. It got stuck in a tree. And the more the sun tried to wiggle out of the tree, the more it got stuck in the branches of the tree. And the sun couldn't move. And well, the other animals, the animals that hunt at night, like the mountain lion and the owls, because the sun didn't rise, they just kept hunting. They thought, hey, this is cool. They just kept going. And the animals that wake up during the day woke up and it was still dark out, so they went back to sleep. And then eventually it got colder and colder and colder. And so the animals called a council and everybody got together and we got to do something. Everybody's talking. What are we going to do? What could we do? And after a lot of discussion, a little bit of chaos, the squirrel said, I'm willing to be of service. I'm good at climbing trees. I'm willing. I'll go. And so the animals were like, hey, sounds like you're the one. Great. And so the squirrel took off towards the east. And the squirrel went and went and went until they got to the east and they got to the tree that had the sun tangled in its branches. And the sun looked just pathetic. The sun was like, oh, could you please help me? Help me, help me. I'm so stuck. And the squirrel was like, okay. The squirrel ran up into the tree and started gnawing away at the branches and breaking away branches. And the sun was so grateful and said, oh, thank you so much. But the problem was the job was really hot and the squirrel kept catching on fire. The bushy tail completely singed. Lots of the moccasins on the squirrel man, they were hot. But the sun was desperate. Please, please don't give up. Please, please. I'm almost free. Please. The squirrel kept moving around branch to branch. And finally, the sun was free and the sun rose in the sky and everybody rejoiced. Everybody was, oh, thank goodness. And the sun was so grateful and looked at the poor, singed, practically bald little squirrel and said, what can I do to show my thanks? And the squirrel's looking at his body and he's like, well, I always wanted to fly. And so that is how the squirrel became the bat.
Well, that's
Yeah.
adorable. And I was
And
just
then they could fly.
I was thinking about the flying squirrel.
And I thought about the flying squirrel. I thought it was going to go there, but they said that is how
Okay.
the bat became the bat. Isn't that a great story? Thank you to the Ojibwa Nation.
Wow, that's fabulous. I love that.
So I choose to look at the bat as a blessing. I know that the guardians of this land, the spirits of this place, have been very, very clear with us about when to do things and when not to do things.
Mhm.
So I listened to them today, and I will listen to them tomorrow, and we will know what to do, and we will do it.
Well, Hannah enjoyed that, and she said, "What a fun story." Hannah also said, "I love bats. They're so misunderstood. Sadly, they're not the only species that have a bad rap. Yeah, like snakes. I never thought of bats being good omen, but the more I think about it, I realize how special they really are." Yes,
So agree,
I would
Hannah.
agree. Yes. And that I want to say that, you know, when you integrate things like animal magic, um, and herbs in your, maybe you grow gardening or something like that, or you have some sort of interaction with nature every day or most days, and you also maybe integrate astrology into your life, you can really start to live a magical life every single day. And that can be really a blessing.
Absolutely.
Especially because I wanted to just go back to Dawn. Dawn Denai is a Leo sun, a Scorpio rising, and a Scorpio moon. So she says, so basically I'm a water sign, right? Or they. Wait, Dawn, I think you're they. Shoot, I forgot your pronoun. Dawn. And Dawn said Leo sun. So I'm thinking with the Scorpio rising and the Scorpio moon, you're going to constantly be unfolding not just emotional and intuition, but also how, and change who you are and change the way you present, all in pursuit of being a better, more noble leader. And so that will probably be sort of your life's theme, if you will. You'll start to notice that you transition, like you change. And some people might even say mean things to you. I'm a Scorpio rising, and they'll say things like, uh, you you're not real because you changed too much or something like that. Just ignore that, please. Just erase that. Don't listen to that. And just instead embrace that you are transformative.
That's the word I was going to go for,
Mhm.
transformative, because understand Scorpio, the ruler of Scorpio is Pluto, and Pluto is transformation with a capital T. It is all about transformation. Actually, if I had to associate a planet to the bat, it would be Pluto, because it's rebirth, it's transformation, and really good to understand how that impacts the rest of your chart, because it can be to ignore Pluto is to ignore where the 2x4s, the clue by fours of life might come from. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I want to just address another great question. Jill said, did anything significant happen astrologically on Friday, July 8th? What a great question, Jill. Thanks for asking that, because it seems like she had a couple of unusual things happen that she didn't expect. So, what I want to say is, I'm wondering right away when I look at my chart here of certain things that have happened for July
that's the list.
are Jupiter conjunct Chiron. Now, I don't know where your Jupiter and Chiron are, but I want to just point at them. Jupiter is expansion, and so it sometimes will test the waters. Is your Jupiter in retrograde? And Jupiter hasn't gone retrograde yet, but sometimes it will test the waters to make sure that its expansion can be handled. And Chiron is very much about the wounded healer, meaning the wounds that you have or receive or born with or whatever, depending on where it is in your chart, these are the things that you sort of overcome and then later help others with. And it doesn't have to be in like a professional way. It could just be that, you overcame, the way you handle money and you help your friend balance her checkbook or something. It will just depend on where it is. Right now they're in Aries. So then I also want to know what's in your Aries house. Where's Aries in your chart and what's in there? Because that conjunct, those two came together on July the 8th. So yes. And because Jupiter's so big and expansive, and Chiron's not always easy, but always ends up as a healing thing. So it will always lead you to being the wounded healer, presenting the part of you that would be the wounded healer. Hannah says that she wants to learn more about astrology, but she's not sure where to start. So what I want to say is that, guess what, Hannah? First of all, I'm happy to do your astrology chart and coach you and show you how to read your own chart. And we can accomplish a lot in an hour. And I do offer readings. Number 2, you have access to Rainbow Soul. And Brighthawk and I are going to be doing regular updates and regular talks about astrology. So get your chart printed and bring it along with you so that you can ask a question. And Mars and Chiron are both in Aries. So I don't know what happened with you, but I wouldn't be surprised if you lost your temper a couple of days ago, Eve. Especially Jupiter going over top of your Mars. It could have made you kind of a little explosive, or it could have made you suddenly want to argue or something like that. It may depend on what house it's in. Because then I want to think about, well, it could depend on what house it's in. It could aspect differently in that for that reason. But because Jupiter came through and probably touched your Mars and Chiron, it probably expanded those. It just may have touched Mars on a different day than actually July 8th. So I don't know what day it touched it, but it probably went over top of it. So if you think about your charts, a circle like this, right? It's a circle like this, right? Kind of looks like that. And inside of here, if this is on astro.com, inside are the planets and where they were when you were born. If you do the transits, they'll be in green on the outer circle out here, okay? Out on the outer ridge. That'll be your transits, okay? They'll be in green, at least on astro.com. I'm not sure how you can do the transits on Astro-charts, except that it just tells you. It just lists them for you.
Yeah, it lists them. And then there's so many resources. And what an incredible time where you can run a chart for free. You can get tons of information. The resources available for free are just, wow. It's stunning. And then learn about yourself first. That's the most fascinating person you're ever going to meet. I promise you. And hopefully, and that starts to tell you, that in that evolution, it's like any kind of learning. As you get going, then you're going to start to realize what's really attracting more of your attention than other things. I've learned fun, crazy things this year about my chart that I'm still contemplating as part of my life story. The fact that I was born 24 hours after a complete lunar eclipse on winter solstice. This is why I am a bright light born on a dark night.
And why most of her life is very destined and karmic.
Yeah, because if you're born on, I learned later, if you're born within 48 hours of an eclipse, there's destiny in your chart written in the stars that and get ready to ride, because
lunar eclipses happen a couple times a year, almost every year. So it is likely that you were born around an eclipse, and you can always tell when you've been born near an eclipse when the north node, which kind of looks like a horseshoe, is directly across the chart from the sun,
which is what happens
which
with
looks
me.
like a sun. It just looks like a circle with a dot in it. Okay, so you're like, oh, okay, that's the sun, and so you want to look for that. And if the horseshoe is directly across, you were born around an eclipse. So I also want to just address Jill. My Chiron, my Chiron is in Aries in the fourth house.
Okay.
So in the fourth house, Jill, this is how houses play out. So what did I say? I said Chiron's the wounded healer, right? So it can sometimes be the wounding or the healing of it. And it's in Aries, which tends to be kind of fiery and sometimes can shoot things off, but not always finish. But it can shoot things off. So it's kind of great as rocket fuel to get you off the ground. And it's in the fourth house. So this is how the house connects with you. The fourth house is definitely about your home, parents, your roots, and your circumstances at the moment. So I'm just going to say that, like, in the fourth house, that's going to be, and of course, it will depend on aspects and stuff like that. They can also kind of shift the way it shows up for you.
Yeah, so that tells you a lot. Chiron in the fourth house, family wounds, overcoming family wounds. And when we say the wounded healer, I think Hollis did a great job of explaining this, that it's the wounds that you have to overcome to become who you are. They're the things that you curse them when they're happening, but decades later you go, and if that had not happened, I would never have learned, blah, 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 blah. Out of the darkest places come the brightest lights. It's that vibration. It's the absolute gold that comes out of the misery of the school of hard knocks, right? Powerful, powerful thing to understand where it is, how it's aspected, and what it's with. So great questions. It makes it really fun when it's interactive.
Absolutely. And I just want to highlight a few things happening in July for you so you can write down the dates.
Oh, yeah.
From July 8th to August 18th, Jupiter and Chiron are conjunct in Aries.
And so conjunct means they're doing a dance.
They're mixing it up.
Amplifying each other's vibration.
Don't be surprised if your wounded healer all of a sudden ends up on stage. Don't be surprised if your wounded healer starts to want to do things, whatever your wounded healer is. And it can look different for everybody. Okay. And from July 10th until July 27th, the sun will be in Cancer, and the sun is trining Neptune. Trine, we said, was a blessing. So the sun is about where we're headed, right? Because it shines the way. So the sun trine Neptune. Neptune is about our dreams, our visions. It's also about magic and psychic abilities. Think about Neptune like that. Okay. And sun is trining it. So these things are going to be, if you're into psychic or doing psychic things, they're going to be leading the way. Listen to your intuition.
And Neptune's in Pisces, a water sign. So the thing about Neptune and Pisces and all that dreamy, watery energy, the thing that can happen, though, is it can be reflective, yes, and it can also be illusory, delusional. It can see things that aren't there, right? So that's the other piece, that Neptune and Pisces can be very potent because it that watery energy amplifies itself. So paying attention to your dreams and recognizing that you don't get caught into some magic, get caught up in magical thinking, but be mindful of reality, right? I guess that's what I'm.
Yeah, beware it's not doing you damage. That's all. And sometimes I think Pisces is just, they're pretty good at their core, and so they just assume that everyone else is, and that's where the illusions come in. They assume that whatever people are saying is truth. Like, I just think they're kind of innocent that way. Yeah, Yes, exactly. Hannah, exactly. You're a Pisces. So, um, as a result, she says she'll pay attention to dreams and see if anything is trying to communicate. Yeah, you'll try to find deeper meaning in things, which is great. Awesome, beautiful. And the part, and just there's always a struggle part of it. But I bet sometimes you have to check in with those dreams, and you've probably learned, maybe the hard way, that you have to check in and make sure that's grounded in reality. So, the other big aspects is that the sun is going to be in opposition to Pluto. So, especially this, especially makes me think about the United States because it's going to be from July 12th to July 29th. So, everyone in the world is affected by the United States politics, unfortunately. So, the sun is in opposition to Pluto, and Pluto is playing out big time in our country right now in the United States.
So that axis, let's just talk about that axis for a
Mhm.
minute, because the sun is in Cancer and Pluto is in Capricorn. So Capricorn, we often call the cool and indifferent taskmaster, task driven. Capricorns are very successful in business. They're very task oriented. They get shit done. um, but they can be, sometimes people will classify them as cool, and so you put you put you put Pluto in Capricorn. You have the sign of that represents death. Pluto represents death and
Rebirth.
transformation
Yeah.
and rebirth. In Capricorn, which can be very task oriented, this is the return of the United States, right? Pluto is a 240 some odd year, 46, I think, a cycle, right? So this conversation is an opposition. It's like talking across from each other, right? So one's in Capricorn and one's in Cancer. And Cancers tends to be, think about Cancers are homebodies. They're very sensitive, but Cancers don't always understand their emotional field. They feel deeply, but they don't always know what they're feeling. So my father was a Cancer. So he was very fun loving, made love to have family dinners, Sunday night family dinners, big chicken, family dinners, big deal. My dad loved having all the kids around the table, and father of seven. I'm the seventh, so definitely loved his family. And he had a lot of patience until he didn't. And then you really didn't want to be around it. You wanted to get the heck out of there. They can feel like they have a really long ramp, emotionally,
Long fuse.
a
Yeah.
long fuse until it gets full, and then the fuse becomes very short indeed. It was very easy to see when the sparkle went out of his eyes. And Cancers are kind of profound people that way. They're really, um, they're they have deep caring natures. And so you see how opposite this, on the axis, if one is, too far in one category or one is too far in the other category. You don't want to be too cool, too indifferent, and you don't want to be too mushy, right? So there's this balance about learning how to have that conversation.
Yeah, and interestingly, I have Saturn in Cancer. So if you have an important planet in Cancer like that, Saturn in Cancer, that makes me not realize that I've done enough work. Saturn in Cancer.
Really?
Yeah, it makes me not
Oh.
realize, and then I'm like, "Oh shit. I've been working for 12 hours every day for 4 days.
Oops.
Oops. I might want to make some time for personal love. I don't know, love. Let's go dancing, honey. Right? Okay, so those kinds of things because I definitely do that, okay? But I've become wiser in it. So that's the Cancer thing. It's like you just don't notice until it's built up and then
Right.
you're like, "Oh shit."
You really want
So,
to know where your Saturn sits. And Saturn
mhm.
is a generational planet because its cycle is much bigger, right? So right now we're in the age of Aquarius with all the Saturn returns of the kids in Aquarius. And so these are your 20 somethings, your late 20 somethings. And
They could be 30.
I'm about to do my second Saturn return, but I'm 0 Pisces. Now my Pisces, my Saturn sits in my 5th house. So no surprise that my enjoyment and my travel and my work are all like this. So which works really well because when you're a musician, that's how you travel, right? That's your good time. I'm having fun when I am entertaining and being entertaining.
Mhm.
I would rather be the entertainer than be entertained most of the time. I think. I would say that was true.
Yeah.
And so, when you start to know where your Saturn is, you start to know how, in the conversation that it's having in the rest of your chart, why, and so some of you know a few of my stories and some of my early international travel. And when I was a 20 something, a college kid, when I was finishing college, I traveled to the Soviet Union, right? And I climbed the highest summit in the continent of Europe. And then many years later, I had an opportunity to go to South Africa, and it was at the very end of apartheid. And Nelson Mandela had just been released from prison. And I realized that in both situations, I was in these countries at their moment of absolute
Now
change.
you're in the United States during it. Oh my
God.
Oh my gosh.
I better write a book
I
about
think you
this.
have a big cycle. Yeah.
But my dad looked at me and he said, Africa. And the first time when it was the Soviet Union, he was just like, kid, I got to hand it to you. You travel with a sense of purpose. And I was like, well, of course. Doesn't everybody? And then I realized, no, not everybody travels with a sense of purpose. Some people absolutely want to travel without any sense of purpose, just to see it, be it, whatever. What has set my sails throughout my entire life has been a sense of mission, a sense of purpose, a sense of destiny, or I'm just driven in that direction of, oh, I'm supposed to go do this so I can take care of these people and help. Da, 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 da. And it's amusing to me now. And now as I reflect on the chart, it's like, oh, it all makes sense now.
Right.
So some of this, I wish I had given my early or 20 something self a lot more of this information.
I think we should learn astrology in high school.
It's kind of like, why isn't everybody get the basics of yoga and meditation in elementary school? And by the way, here's your star chart. You might want to know something about yourself.
Right. And look, Eve, you're saying that your Saturn is in Gemini. I don't know what house it's in, but Gemini tends to be higher knowledge.
It makes total sense that you're doing law school.
It's an air sign. It's intellectual. Gemini can also be two-sided.
Perfect.
It can sometimes have just be two-sided. And it's called the twin. And I don't know what house it's in. Mine's in the 9th house, which is why I travel well with Bright Hawk, because Saturn is about systems. It's about karma. It's about how things function for you. And my Saturn is up in the 9th house, but it's almost on top of what they call my MC, which if you look at the very tippy top of your chart, it's called the MC. See it up there? It's just called MC. It's like a big black line right up in the middle. It's the MCs at the top and the ICs at the bottom. The MC is what you offer the world. The 9th and the 10th house tend to have a lot to do with your career. So the fact that I travel with Bright Hawk around the country in an RV doing Let's Dance totally makes sense. Okay. It's like, well, duh, we couldn't have, but wow, what a great manifestation of Saturn in the 9th house, so like, especially since it's in Cancer, because think about Cancer, it carries its home on its back. And I was in an
home
RV,
businesses.
Right? And now we run a home business, right? Okay. So you guys can see how this manifests in your life. Now, the other big thing that's happening is on July 20th. So Mars is going to become conjunct with Uranus. And the thing about that, it makes me a little concerned, and I'm pretty sure it is in Taurus though. So hopefully I'm hoping that the Taurus energy will ground it out, because
Mm-hmm.
Uranus is explosive. It's nuclear. I tend to Uranus is on my ascendant. If you're non-binary, pay attention to where Uranus is.
Fascinating.
Because Uranus is kind of your weird spot, and my Uranus is on my ascendant. And not all non-binary people, but many non-binary people have Uranus either
In
on
the 12th
top of
house.
the ascendant, which is the line that goes across the middle. On the left side it says AC, on the right side it says DC. On the left side is your ascendant, on the right side is your descendant. That's who's attracted to you. Your ascendant is how you live in the world. And so if Uranus is on there or within 10 degrees of it in the 12th or first house, you tend to be non-binary and or queer in some way, or gender nonconforming especially. Or there's other aspects related to Aquarius that I can talk about some other time. But that those things are the kinds of things that I'm looking at right now when I want to look at as many non-binary charts as there are. So if you live in the world and you identify as non-binary, please email me your chart. I'm trying to look at it. divineandrogencoach@gmail.com, because I believe it is my destiny to find out.
And so
So,
far, so good. We're both 12th house, have Uranus in the 12th house.
yeah.
So Eve asked or mentioned that Chris has the sun sign in Cancer in the 7th house. So I'm going to say that you are very good at relationship, and relationships are really important to you. Matter of fact, I wonder if you've spent any time being single, any length of time being alone, because the Cancer, all about relationships, all about making wonderful homes in the 7th house. The 7th house tells us about how we do relationship. It's about marriage, it's about partnership,
Commitment. Cancers are usually very loyal as well.
And Cancer is, so sun in the 7th house of Cancer, I'm going to say, wow, you're a great partner.
Yeah.
So I hope that's true.
Oh,
And
is the 7th child and is a Cancer. Okay. Is a Cancer sun. Okay. I get it.
I saw. Okay.
Cancer sun sign. It's okay. But
Cool.
that's what Cancer suns, they tend to, my son's a Cancer rising, so he sometimes doesn't know that he's going to lose his temper. And so I said to his partner, I said, yeah, so he just kind of gets mad and doesn't know he's mad until he's already mad. And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, yeah, that's because he's a Cancer rising. So, and he also doesn't really Chris might struggle a little bit with what he's feeling inside until he's actually feeling it. And then when it comes falling out all over the place, then he's like, oh, here it is.
So asking a Cancer how they're feeling doesn't help. It actually pisses them off and frustrates them, in my experience.
Yes. My son, I used to drive my son crazy.
Yeah.
Because I'm a Scorpio ascendant. We talked about this. We get to the root of everything. And so I would ask him, how are you feeling? Because I wanted to be a good parent. And he'd be like, shut up, Mom. I don't know. Okay. So
you'd better off asking thinking questions, or just go do something, go for a walk and then let it fall out of their mouths or something like that. You have to go a little sideways. The crab walks sideways. You have to go sideways to find out what's going on with them, because they don't know.
Yeah.
And the more you're like, something is going on with you, if you're a Scorpio and you're all intuitive and stuff, and you're picking up on things that they're
Scorpio
not even
or
picking
Pisces,
up on,
yeah,
that could be a problem. You might want to check in. So
yeah.
But the people sometimes categorize folks in ways that are not kind, and so we really try to broaden people's understanding, so you're not doing, all Scorpios are this, or all Tauruses are that, or whatever. Like Hollis said at the beginning, It's a wheel. It has all 12 signs of the zodiac. Everybody has all 12 signs. You just
Everybody.
have different things emphasized, and um the opportunity is to figure out how you do you, and then as you understand how you do you, then there's an opportunity to go, oh, I think I'm pissing that person off because I am double fire and they are all water.
Mm-hmm.
And they're pissing me off because they keep pissing on my fire and I'm pissing them off. Wow. Okay. I get what's going on here. I need to cool off.
Right.
And it literally can be that elemental sometimes.
Can be.
And I think that's sort of what helped, where, you know, we tend to reach for tools when we're desperate, right? And so astrology definitely at different times I've reached for it, like, explain to me what is going on, please, so I can navigate it. And the more that I learn, the more it's like, wow, this is really deep. Let's keep going.
It is really deep, but we are running out of
Oh my
time.
gosh.
So
And
I just want to list.
what a great
I want to
initial
list the
installment.
last three,
Really
the last
important.
three important aspects, which is Sun trine Jupiter. Okay, that's going to be from July 23rd to August 9th. The Sun is in Leo and Jupiter is in Aries. So I don't know where those are. You know, you can look and see where Leo is in your chart. And for me, it's in the 11th house. You know, that's how it will apply in your life. Find out what the 11th house means or the 10th house means. Okay.
And this one I'm going to pay attention to because it's 0 Leo. And what did we say? I have a 0 Leo moon.
Mhm.
So when you pay attention to those numbers, it's like the pinball thing we were talking about. Then when you have a experience like you did on July 8th and you're like, what just happened? And you start to see, oh, these things line up. And again, when you're looking at stuff like the Sun trine Jupiter, Sun is in 0 Leo for that. It starts in 0 Leo. It starts on the 23rd. Okay. And Jupiter is at 8 Aries. So anything you have that are on those numbers, give or take 2 degrees, light up. And there's a conversation happening between those aspects. And that's where you may feel it. The other thing that's really important is Jupiter goes retrograde. When Jupiter, a huge big planet like Jupiter, goes retrograde, it goes retrograde for a long time. And, you know,
For like
Mercury,
4 months.
Mercury's like, goes, you know, it's everything happens within a month, you know. Mercury's going to be retrograde till November.
Yeah.
So it's a 4-month retrograde period.
Yeah.
And, you know, so Jupiter's energy is going to be right now. I think I said this at the beginning. I don't know if I finished this thought. Right now, the inner planets, the personal planets, Mars, Venus, Mercury, Venus, the first 3 planets, Venus, Mercury, Mars, those personal planets, they're all direct right now. Okay. Mm-hmm. The outer planets are starting to have a number of them are retrograde already. Jupiter will add to that at the end of the month. And notice what happens. And what happens for me, I really notice Mercury retrogrades. I have a Mercury retrograde. I notice Hollis's communication goes completely wonky about in the what we call the shadow period. So when a planet goes retrograde, there's a period on either side that's called the shadow period. That's several days. This to me, I call akin to you're driving along in the car, you didn't see the sign that said speed bump, you forgot to slow down, and everybody goes, boom, what the hell? Right? And you probably slow down, but now it's too late. Mm-hmm. That's what that can feel like sometimes, and how these impact you. So again, we're trying to just sort of help share the information so that you don't hit the top of your head on the car.
Mm-hmm. All right. So when Sun is trine Jupiter during that time, July 23rd to August 9th, if you have something you want to present to the world, you have a business you want to launch, you have something like that, do it during that time, July 23rd and August 9th. And Mars is squaring Saturn July 29th to August 18th. So you should be aware of arguing, Try not to
Big
argue
time.
with people, especially if you're trying to launch that thing in the world.
Yeah.
You just want to slow down on the arguing, and you want to try to tap into the cooperative energy of Libra instead of um tapping into more of like the Aquarius energy, which is where Saturn is. Okay. And Mars is in Taurus, and that will be from July 29th to August 18th. You might just want to put a little reminder on your calendar or something. I used to put stuff like, don't argue with anyone. And it would work, and I would come up and remind me, and I'd be like, oh, okay. And that works actually. Saturn sextile Chiron from July 31st to November 14th, depending on what house Chiron is in, will depend on how it affects you. But Saturn is sextiling it, so that's a good thing. So it could bless and bring your wounded healer forward. So any wounds you may be suffering now with the Jupiter conjunct Chiron, anything like that that might be happening, by the time you get to July 31st, you might start noticing that in a way it's helping you. Somehow it's helping your system, or helping you, like maybe you have to now have a schedule because of a health challenge, because Chiron can be in the house of health, which is the sixth house. That's where it is for me. And when I had a Chiron returns, I had a major health problem. So I just want to say that, you need to pay attention to your whole wheel, to your whole chart. And those are the aspects for this month. And we'll do another one when August gets here. And I just want to address Eve. They said that Chris's chart is in, and I believe Chris's is they. So I apologize for using the wrong pronoun before. I wasn't aware, but now I am, and it's they. So Cancer, your sun is in the fourth house,
which is about family.
Chris.
We talked about that.
We talked about that. And
parents.
Cancer, still in Cancer, Mercury and Mars are in the fifth house. So I just wanted to address the fifth house. If you want to know about children, if you want to have children and you want to look at that, look in the fifth house. If it's empty, it doesn't mean you're not having children. What that means is that you'll have more free choice about it. Okay, there will be a choice. You will make choices. Okay, and that's the fifth house. And so Mercury and Mars, the fifth house is very much about children, creativity, fun, how you like to have a good time. So I would not be surprised if Chris enjoys having either a good friend over or hanging out at home and having great conversation. Mercury is all about conversation, and but Mars is, yes, the god of war, but it's also about action, how we take action, where we go, what we do. And so I wouldn't be surprised to find out that Chris kind of like is a little bit of a homebody. But that's okay, it's in their chart. So it's just kind of, especially with a lot going on in Cancer, because Cancer tends to like their home. They usually have really great homes. So they make their home really beautiful and perfect just for them.
Are they foodies, or is that more Taurus?
It's a little bit more Taurus.
Okay.
But they can be.
Well,
so
this was fun. I hope you guys enjoyed this, because we're going to do it again. This was let's try this out, see if this works. I bet we can have an hour-long conversation about what's going on this week and this month. Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, we didn't have any problem at all. So I just want to pull 3 cards for you right now today. I'm going to pull 3 tarot cards from the Pride Love is Love deck. You can find it online. All of the artists every single piece of art is done by a different LGBTQIA person. So it's an entire collaborative deck, which I think is beautiful. So the Queen of Cups is in our history, and it's now meaning to remind us of the divine, to remind us of the divinity, like especially in non-binary, in the sacredness of being queer, in the sacredness of expressing yourself as authentically as possible, because all of us have an authentic side, and it's probably not binary. So, just so you know, and most of us actually have a little bit of both. And that's what this is all about. See how the octopus is also balancing their emotions. That's because this Queen of Cups is a master of her emotions. She is a master of managing the waves of the ocean and the entire part of shamanistic non-binary queerness, and that's exactly what the Queen of Cups is. So I want you to manifest, think about that most magical, authentic you that you know. Yeah, well, it needs to step up and deliver its messages right now. That part of you needs to step forward and present the messages to the world, because we need your message. Goodness, do we need your message? We need to change the world, and right now the world is listening. We need to find better solutions, and we need to hear from everyone. So speak up, speak out, write it down, do a blog, come on my show, figure out a way to get your message out to the world. And as you start sending your message out to the world, you will notice that you will feel like you are on your life's path. Your life's calling is calling you forward. Get your dancing shoes, honey, because it is time to celebrate as you walk forward in exactly your life's path as it is supposed to be. So just remember, my friends, tap into that shaman, authentic, magical person that we all have within us. Every single one of us has the ability to be this, which is completely authentically ourselves. And as we step forward with our message, bring it forward, because we need to hear from you. We need to hear everything you've got to say. We need to hear your message. Deliver it to us. And as a result, you will feel like you are living your life's calling.
Wow.
So I hope that that reading works for you. Please take what you like and leave the rest. And in the meantime, I want to wish every single one of you a beautiful day, beautiful evening, and a beautiful week. And I look forward to seeing you next week. So first, I'm going to say thank you, Bright Hawk. Thanks for doing the astrology with me. I really think it is a good idea. I think Rainbow Soul will love the regular updates. And thank you, all of you out there, Eve and Hannah and Jill, everyone watching the show today, and even the ones that watch it when replay it later. Even if you didn't catch it live, that's okay. Catch it on the podcast. And you know what? Thank you. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. Thank you for visiting our website, rainbowsoul.show. And you can get a reading with me at divineandrogen.com.
Please hear me say thank you. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Thanks for being you. Thank you for all you do. Thank you for what you've been through. Thank you for being you. Thank you. And since I think thank you is the key to happiness, the secret to life, I've learned how to say thank you in as many languages as possible. I think I'm up to something like 30 languages, but I only put about half of them in this song. So let's see how many you recognize. Merci, grazie, shishini, danki, dankeschön, spasiba, du melama, kaleboga, kitos, kamsahamnida, arigato, obrigado, Tatiana, sawabona, sukraya, gracias, aloha, mahalo, namaste. wish you all the best. Take care.
Thank you for watching Rainbow Soul. We are so grateful for your presence and listening in this past hour. Be sure you're subscribed and get notifications so you can join us and catch us every Sunday night here live. We appreciate you sharing, commenting, reacting, and inviting others to the show. This is a show for you, so tell us, who would you like to see on the next show? What topics inspire you? You can always find replays, more about the host, blog posts, merchandise, information about games and contests, and social media links at rainbowsoul.show. We love to show our gratitude with fun and games and contests with prizes that celebrate who we are as a community. Rainbow Soul holds the intention to explore consciousness and spirituality in cultures with a deep reverence for cultural roots, equality, and inclusion. We are always striving to recognize the spiritual medicine available to all of us in the modern world. We hope that you walk away knowing that you are perfectly valid in whatever identity you embrace for yourself and that you are sacred, just as you are. Thank you so much for tuning in to Rainbow Soul. In the land of Africa, there lives a hippo who learns to overcome being different through an ecstatic dance experience. Sometimes life is sweet, and sometimes life stings. It's up to you to decide. What are you willing to be? Asks the honeybee. The firefly reminds us that only you can shine your light. The butterfly speaks of the wonder of transformation, while the moon helps the hippo feel a confident glow. Find out what happens in a hippo dance trance. This beautifully illustrated book presents expressive artwork through gender-neutral characters that deliver messages about being yourself, perspective, and personal transformation. Order today at brighthawkproductions.com.